Call me crazy. But I honestly believe Japan has a real chance to beat Brazil. Yes. Brazil. The country that has won more World Cups than anyone else. The nation that produced Pelé, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Kaká, and so many other legends. A team that millions of fans expect to lift the trophy every single tournament. So why would anyone pick Japan? At first, it sounds ridiculous. Almost disrespectful. But here's the thing. The World Cup has never been about reputation. It's about who performs when the pressure is at its highest. And after watching every minute of Japan's campaign in this tournament, I think we're looking at a team that has quietly become one of the most dangerous sides left in the competition. Not because they have the biggest stars. Not because they play flashy football. But because they know exactly who they are. And more importantly, they know exactly how to beat teams that are supposed to be better than them. Now, before you start typing in the comments, no way Brazil loses. Hear me out. I'm not saying Brazil is a bad team. Far from it. Brazil deserves to be one of the favorites. Their squad is full of elite players. They have experience, quality, confidence, everything you need to win a World Cup. But football isn't played on paper. It never has been. If it were, there would never be any upsets. There would never be miracles. And the World Cup wouldn't be the greatest sporting event on earth. Now, before you start typing in the comments, no way Brazil loses. Hear me out. I'm not saying Brazil is a bad team. Far from it. Brazil deserves to be one of the favorites. Their squad is full of elite players. They have experience, quality, confidence, everything you need to win a World Cup. But football isn't played on paper. It never has been. If it were, there would never be any upsets. There would never be miracles. And the World Cup wouldn't be the greatest sporting event on earth. So today, I want to answer one simple question. Can Japan actually eliminate Brazil? Not based on emotion. Not based on hope. But based on what we've seen from both teams in this tournament. Because once you look beyond the names, you might start seeing this matchup very differently. Brazil is still the favorite. And here's why. When people look at this matchup, the answer seems obvious. Brazil should win. And honestly, that's a fair opinion. This is still Brazil. The most successful nation in World Cup history. A team that doesn't just expect to compete. They expect to lift the trophy. From the moment the tournament began, Brazil has carried the weight of enormous expectations. Not because of their history alone, but because of the quality throughout their squad. Look across the pitch. Almost every position is filled with players competing at the highest level of European football. They're fast, technically gifted, comfortable under pressure. And perhaps most importantly, they're used to playing the biggest matches. That's something statistics can't always measure. Experience matters. Especially in knockout football. When one mistake can end your tournament. Players who have lived through those moments often stay calmer. That's one of Brazil's biggest advantages. But Brazil isn't dangerous because of individual talent alone. What makes them special is how quickly they can change a game. One accurate pass. One clever movement. One moment of brilliance. And suddenly, everything changes. Even when they're not playing their best football, Brazil can still find a way to score. That's why opponents can never relax for even a second. And then there's confidence. When you wear the famous yellow shirt, you don't step onto the field hoping to win. You step onto the field expecting to win. That mentality has been built over generations. It's part of Brazil's football identity. Every opponent knows it. Every fan feels it. And every player carries that responsibility. So yes, Brazil deserves to be the favorite. No question. If we only compare history, talent, and experience, Brazil wins almost every category. But football has never been decided by history alone. Because if history always won, there would be no reason to play the match. And that's exactly where Japan enters this story. So, if Brazil is the favorite, why am I even giving Japan a chance? Because this isn't the same Japanese team we've seen in previous generations. For years, Japan earned respect because of their discipline, their work ethic, their organization. But something has changed. This team hasn't just become organized. They've become fearless. Watch the way they play. They don't sit back simply because they're facing a football giant. They don't panic when they're under pressure. They don't lose their shape after conceding possession. Instead, they trust their system. Every player knows exactly where to be. Every run has a purpose. Every press is coordinated. And that's what makes them dangerous. Modern football isn't always won by the team with the biggest stars. It's often won by the team that works together the best. Japan understands this better than almost anyone. When they defend as 11. When they attack as 11. There are no passengers. Nobody waits for someone else to solve the problem. Everyone contributes. That collective mentality has become Japan's greatest weapon. Another reason this team feels different is experience. Not just international experience. European experience. Today, many Japanese players compete every week in some of the toughest leagues in the world. They've learned how to handle high pressure. They've learned how to play against world-class opponents. And perhaps most importantly, they no longer step onto the field believing they're underdogs. They believe they belong. That mindset changes everything. People still talk about Japan as if they're a surprise package. I don't see it that way anymore. This isn't luck. This isn't a one-time miracle. This is the result of years of development. Years of investment. Years of building a football identity. Japan didn't suddenly become good overnight. They've been preparing for this moment for a very long time. And here's the biggest reason why Brazil should be careful. Japan doesn't need to dominate possession. They don't need 50 shots. They don't need flashy football. They only need one mistake. One transition. One perfectly timed counterattack. Because against teams that love attacking, Japan becomes even more dangerous. Brazil's biggest weakness against Japan. Now, let's talk about something that almost nobody wants to admit. Brazil isn't perfect. No team is. Even the greatest teams have weaknesses. The question isn't whether Brazil has one. The question is whether Japan can exploit it. And I believe they can. Brazil loves to attack. That's part of their football DNA. Their fullbacks push forward. Their midfield joins the attack. Their wingers stay high and wide. It's exciting to watch. But every aggressive attack comes with a risk. The more players you commit forward, the more space you leave behind. And against most teams, Brazil can recover quickly. But Japan isn't like most teams. Japan transitions from defense to attack incredibly fast. The moment they win possession, they don't waste time. One pass. Two passes. Suddenly they're running directly at your backline. That's where Brazil could be vulnerable. Not because they defend badly, but because Japan attacks so efficiently. Another important factor. Japan is patient. They don't force opportunities. They're willing to defend for long periods. Waiting. Watching. Looking for one mistake. And against an attacking team like Brazil, that patience can become a weapon. Football is often decided by moments. Not dominance. One misplaced pass. One failed tackle. One defensive error. That's all it takes. And here's something people often forget. Knockout football isn't always about playing better. Sometimes, it's about making fewer mistakes. Brazil may create 20 chances. Japan may create 3. But if one of those 3 ends in the back of the net, everything changes. Pressure shifts. Confidence shifts. The entire match changes. That's why this game is much closer than many people think. Not because Brazil isn't world-class, but because Japan has exactly the kind of football that can punish even the strongest teams. So, can Japan actually beat Brazil? My answer is yes. But only if they play the perfect game. Brazil is still the stronger team on paper. They have more stars, more experience, more individual quality. If both teams perform at their absolute best, Brazil probably wins. That's simply the reality. But World Cups are never played on paper. They're played under pressure. In 90 unpredictable minutes. One deflection. One mistake. One incredible save. One moment of magic. History has shown us that football doesn't always reward the favorite. Sometimes, it rewards the team that believes. If Japan scores first, everything changes. Brazil suddenly has to chase the game. The spaces become even bigger. The pressure grows. Every missed chance becomes heavier. Every minute feels longer. That's exactly the type of match Japan wants. On the other hand, if Brazil scores early, the game becomes much more difficult for Japan. Brazil can control possession, slow the tempo, force Japan to take more risks. And that's where Brazil's quality usually takes over. So, the first goal may decide everything. Personally, I don't think this will be a comfortable win for Brazil. I think it'll be one of the toughest matches they've played in this tournament. Because Japan has earned the world's respect. Not through reputation, but through performance. Not through history, but through consistency. And that makes them dangerous. So, am I crazy for thinking Japan can beat Brazil? Maybe. But football has always belonged to the dreamers. Because every great upset in World Cup history started with someone saying, "It can't happen. Maybe this time, it can." Now I want to hear from you. Who wins this match? Brazil? Japan? Or does it go all the way to penalties? Leave your prediction in the comments. And let's see who gets it right.